Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Business Incorporated. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwago. On the show today, Dubai's Average sells Latin and Africa businesses to colony capital. African artists release a song against colonial CFA franc currency. Plus, OPEC's leaders, Saudi Arabia and Russia, try to convince fellow oil producers to raise output from July to meet rising global demand as OPEC meeting begins in Vienna, Austria. Let's get the show started now with the markets. And here in Africa, Nigerian stock market fell deeper in the red at intraday, down 1.16%. Egypt and South Africa JSE index were in the green. The JSE index was up 0.23%, while EGX 30 index was up 1.07%. Kenya closed in the red on Wednesday. And in the Middle East, Saudi shares rose while Dubai-listed Air Arabia tumbled after the carrier revealed it had an exposure of $336 million to embattled Dubai private equity firm Average. At intraday, the Tadawul All-Share Index was up 0.3%, led by financial shares after the Kingdom's bourse was granted inclusion by MSCI into the index provider's emerging markets benchmark. On the Dubai bourse, Air Arabia declined more than 6% as investors continued to sell shares of the carrier this week, since it said on Monday it had appointed a team of investment in Average, which has filed for provisional liquidation, is protected. However, the index was up 0.19% at intraday. The Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange General Index was little changed, down 0.33%. Qatar was up 0.46%. And in Europe, markets were higher in early trade against a backdrop of growing tensions in the oil market ahead of an OPEC meeting that could expand crude production. Also, the Bank of England is widely expected to hold interest rates steady, though policymakers at the central bank could lay the groundwork for a rate hike as soon as August. Let's bring in Ulrich Batz now for details. Hello, Ulrich. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon there.
Now, today's Bank of England meeting is in sharp focus for the market. What is the current position in the currency space, the pound and the euro, and the US dollar?
Yeah, the pound went down after the pound is going up against the US dollar, excuse me, after that rate decision by the Bank of England came through. The euro not changed much vis-a-vis the dollar. The euro was down anyways, and it did not move much after the decision in London. The Bank of England is keeping its key rate unchanged at 0.5%. That's the rate at which it loans money to banks, and it's keeping its buying program at the same level as well. The interesting thing, I think that's the reason why the pound is edging up a little, not very much, but just a little against the dollar, is that it wasn't a unanimous decision to hold rates. It was 9-6, so there were 3 members who did not say that they wanted to change rates or leave rates unchanged. And this means that there's speculation now that the rates will change in August and that there will be a rate change then. The Bank of England is in a very difficult position. It basically needs to hike rates. It probably would have been warranted today already because inflation is zooming up there. The pound, the low pound, the low level of the pound, it just makes all the purchases of the Brits abroad all that more expensive when they translate it into the pound. But at the same time, the economy, the lagging economy, can't take higher interest rates very well. So I think even the August decision will probably be a difficult one.
All right, let's take a peek into the auto industry. The shares of top German automakers Daimler, BMW and Volkswagen were down today as these companies threw their weight behind the removal of all import tariffs for cars between EU and the US. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, it's the industry association, the VDA, which is making an appeal, it was said, to the politics to get rid of all the tariffs on cars and thus not have negative tariffs in a competitive sense. Now, the industry association, the VDA, denies that it made exactly that demand or that wish. But it does say that it wants to enter into a dialogue on reducing trade barriers according to the rules of the World Trade Organization. Basically saying something like that, and one can deduce that the original interpretation by the media was correct, that German automakers have no interest whatsoever in having tariffs raised. And of course, it's also a concession that at the moment, at least in passenger cars, the situation is an unfair one in relation to the U.S. The U.S. cars are levied at a higher rate than European cars are in the United States. So the association also sees some leeway there and some justification in Donald Trump's demand. Some justification, one should add.
Right, Ulrich, just before I let you go, the MSCI has moved to include Saudi Arabia and Argentina bourses in its emerging markets index. Are traders in Frankfurt keen on this news as a trading theme, even as emerging markets are wrestling with threats, geopolitics, and the likes?
I think the emerging markets are always also in focus here in the financial center of Germany, because there's so many investment funds, mutual funds, exchange-traded funds that concentrate on emerging markets. Of course, the core of the volume that gets invested here within Germany and also in Europe goes into industrial nations. But of course, to get a bit more yield and also to catch growth trends in emerging markets, which can come very fast, it's interesting to be broadening the base of the MSCI like this. And of course, it also works the other way. Saudi Arabia, for example, is seen as getting billions in additional liquidity through this decision. One company said that Riyadh was looking at some $40 billion more in investment. And as a first reaction, the stock market in Riyadh went up by 0.3%.
All right, Ulrich, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the day.